Good morning, Joshua here. This morning we are continuing in our Gospel of Mark series. But rather than hearing from me, today we get the privilege of hearing from my longtime friend and mentor, Chris Vinand. Some of you know Chris. Chris actually grew up in South Africa, but many years ago, I don't know how many years, he moved to California with his family and planted a church, and he's now led a number of different churches. And Chris actually currently leads a church called Genesis Church in Costa Mesa, California. And the church is really similar to our dynamic. Many young people, a lot of what they do is centered around a dining room table, really community forward kind of church. And I just love what his vision for church and the future of church is, and just love Chris so much. He's been such an encouragement to me. Anyway, Chris and their church has actually been teaching through the Gospel of Mark almost exactly in line with the timing of us. I just found that out recently, which was really cool. And so I asked Chris if he would mind sharing his teaching from the Gospel of Mark chapter 7, starting in verse 24. And so we're going to hear from Chris right now.
And think of those of you in Temecula and San Diego and Alaska and Colorado and Florida and South Africa and Australia. Welcome. It's great that you share the moment with us. So grab your Bibles. We are in a story through Mark, the 16 chapters. We've called it the New Exodus because we find it compelling how it mirrors the first Exodus and how Jesus is taking us on a journey out of the things that cripple us, belittle us, break us, into a journey of wholeness and newness and freshness. So today we are in a remarkable little story. I think you're going to be compelled by it. So Mark chapter 7 from verse 24. Mark chapter 7 verse 24. I'm reading from the NIV. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. I was viewing a history of Pentecostalism last week and how this tiny little house up in Azusa, north of LA, tiny little house. You see, when Jesus is present, you can't keep it a secret. You don't have to Instagram it, social media it. You don't have to be big pushes. You just have to let Jesus be there, and the word will get out. So he was trying to have some vacation. Tyre was a beautiful little beach resort city. If you look at photographs of it, even today, I want to go there. This looks like a super cool vacation spot. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syria, Phoenicia, and she begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. He said, "First let the children eat all they want," he told her, "for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." Kind of not a cool thing to say, we think. "Yes, Lord," she replied, "but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And then he told her, "For such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Now, there are many ways we can teach this passage. We all know the story well, those of us who've walked with the Lord for any period of time. Here comes a woman to Jesus. He's trying to have a bit of a vacation. She hears about him. Tyre is just outside of modern-day Israel and Lebanon. She comes from the more northern area, still Lebanon, from Greek extract, Greek parents, Greek family lineage, family of origin. But for some reason, she's in the south. And she hears about Jesus. And so she finds him, seemingly, possibly, to his irritation. And she comes to see him. And by our modernist leanings, we think he's super rude to her. And yet she responds with great humility, and he heals her little girl. But I want to conversate today around three big ideas. I don't want to take too much time about the demon and demon possession or demon oppression or demon eyes. I don't want to go down that road today, because I want to hone in on three things that I think is incredibly compelling about this little story. Would you work with me? And the first is Jesus and being politically correct. You know what's so incredibly interesting here is that we're dealing with a first century mindset. I've been doing a lot of reading, different authors, different classical historians to try and understand what that first century mindset was like. Because to understand the story is to understand the socio-political context in which it was being played out. Now, being PC is a subtle pressure that exists on all of us. None of us are exempt from that. In fact, in some cases, it's even applauded. But is it? Is it really what it appears to be, or is it another form of spiritual captivity that holds us, anchors us down, and slowly wears us down from our own convictions to what is popularly applauded, what is communally received as the right answer to any given question? John Stott, the British theologian, whom I really enjoy, certainly for the challenges of the 20th century, he said this. He said, our culture blinds, deafens, and dopes us. Let's pause on that for just a moment. Our culture blinds us. In other words, we don't see what's obvious. I stumbled onto this psychological video called the Inattention Blindness. And what they did was they brought two basketball teams, kind of street teams, one wearing darker t-shirts, one wearing lighter t-shirts, and they asked this question: how many passes do the white team or the light team make? And I mean, I'm in the game now, so I'm counting furiously because I'm competitive and I want to be right. So I'm watching every pass that's made as they kind of practice and throw the ball around. I get 13. The answer is, the narrator says, 13. I mean, I'm a winner. I did it. And then he asked the question, did you see the moonwalking bear? And what are you talking about? This was a basketball practice between two teams, and I got the counting right. And they rewind it, and they play it, and my word, there in the middle of this play that I watched carefully and counted every pass, is this man dressed up as a bear moonwalking through the middle. Inattentional blindness. In other words, we are vulnerable, the psychologists say, to see what we see or want to see, and are blind to what we don't see or can't see in that moment. And John Stott says our culture blinds us. We don't see what's obvious and immediate in front of us. Secondly, he says, our culture deafens us. We don't hear the cry. We don't hear the pain, the distress of those things of our culture that we have silenced. We may have grown up in that space. I'll give you some examples in just a moment. And then the third, obviously, is the issue of being doped. We numbed. Not only do we not see, we don't hear, but we numbed to the pain, the tragedy, the trauma that our culture imposes on us. Now, let's take some easy ones to relate to. So when missionaries first went to Japan and saw the little girls having their feet tied up, eventually the bones break under the guise of femininity, walking around lightly, perceived to be elegant. Wow, there was this incredible outcry. How can you break the little girl's feet? And to us today, were we to see that, we would say, heck no, can't do. That's completely inappropriate. Or what about the burning of the widows in India? When a man died, the culture was that his bride, his widow, would be put on the pyre with him, and she would be burnt in respect of him and for the afterlife in the reincarnation. Oh, again, absolute outcry. How can we do that? Apartheid in South Africa, where there were very clear layers. If you were white, you were the top of the hierarchy, and then Indians, and then so-called coloreds, and then of the black majority were viewed with disdain, or at least inferior. And even the educational system, 1956, Hendrik Verwoerd, he introduced he said, blacks are designed to be servants, so let's create a educational system. I know you're freaking out, and you should. Let's create an educational system that prepares black people to be servants. See, the problem is it's easy for us to step into someone else's culture and to see, hear, and feel what they don't see, hear, and feel. And that's why the gospel can never be held captive to any politically correct position. It cannot be. I marched because I believe in justice, because I believe in equality, but not necessarily because I'm joining the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm not against them or for them. I'm illustrating a point. For me, the kingdom conversation was justice and equality. That's the kingdom conversation. And in all of this, as we will see as we work our way through this passage, is the fact that Jesus comes to this woman. And what does he say to her? He says, first, let the children eat all they want, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. We are so offended by that, as we should be. We feel like Jesus is being absolutely rude. He is not being politically correct, speaking with grace and dignity to a mother who's obviously in pain. I think what Jesus does here is he actually declares the rabbinical position clearly. I'll talk about that in just a moment. He is not being unpolitically correct. He's being absolutely politically correct. He is saying, you are not from around here. I cannot teach you. I cannot minister to you. The Pharisees watching this would have said, well done, Jay. You got it. This is the right answer. You should not be giving her any time. But where does he land? He doesn't land in being PC. He lands in grace. He lands in forgiveness. He lands in healing. He lands in kindness. He lands in goodness. When he says to this woman, go home. Your little girl is healed. Isn't that exquisite? The challenge for every one of us, dear friends, is that we have to be bold enough, courageous enough, humble enough to say, Jesus, what part of my culture do I bow a knee of surrender to, that I am politically correct to? What part of that? And can you change me, even if it costs me something? Because I want to be driven, forged, and formed by a kingdom culture that is not held captive to being American or South African or Australian or British. No, absolutely not. Meryl and I were doing a marriage, a Zoom call, different regions in the world, and we were in the Middle East area, and we speak very honestly about intimacy and sex between couples, and it was quite a smaller group. And Matthew, one of the Englishmen in the Dubai church, when I said to him, well, Matt, what's your question? And he said, well, this has probably been the most awkward hour and a half for any British person. Well, of course it was. Because to be politically correct in Britain is you don't talk about these things. It's not PC. You don't engage in those stories. So that's the first big idea. And I've got to move along, although we don't leave it behind us. Jesus started, I suspect, by taking the PC position. Man, we can't give you the kids food. But he ends up with a kingdom perspective, grace, goodness, kindness, healing, forgiveness. Number two, Jesus and this woman. Well, he was going down to Tyre, and he wanted to rest up. We know that he was absolutely exhausted, and in the most inconvenient way, this woman stumbles into his world. Let me just briefly touch on, as we're on the summer and we're able to get away, can I encourage you to develop a healthier vacation theology? I want to say 3 things need to happen for a good vacation. This is no extra charge. This is Chris having fun. 1, to rest. When we get away, it really is important for us not to chase our tail running from one thing to the next. Catch up on some sleep, eat well, and exercise. The second thing I think for healthy vacations is to restore our souls. Life is difficult out there. Challenges, obstacles, hurdles. We get defeated, we get beat down, a business deal goes bad, a mum is up for hours or a dad up for hours during the night because the baby's not sleeping, is colicky, and so on. Our souls get depleted in the normal milieu of things. Meryl and I, when our kids were smaller, would try and have 2 or 3 days in our vacation where just her and I go away together. And then the kids join us later. We needed some time for our souls. We needed some time for some long walks and to lie and read and get off social media and unnecessary news that just boom, boom, boom beats us up, but allows us to get out there, hikes, and just spend some time with pen in hand reflecting on the last months. And then, of course, resetting. Give yourself a few weeks that allow you to reset. God, how am I doing? God, what do you require of me as I get out the bus, so to speak, for the next chapter of our lives? What do I say yes to and what do I say no to? But let's get back to Jesus and the woman. We know that she was of Greek origin, a Syro-Phoenician woman. And so one commentator said there were 3 reasons why Jesus shouldn't have engaged her as a rabbi at all. Firstly, she was a woman. And everyone knows rabbis don't teach women. We know that. Secondly, she was a Gentile, and you certainly don't teach Gentiles. And then thirdly, to make matters worse, she was a foreigner. So there were 3 obstacles Jesus had not, by all acceptable standards of the day, engaged her. Well, was Jesus a misogynist? Was he just kind of a woman-hating guy? Well, Rabbi Yehuda recommended that every day men should pray, "Blessed are you, Lord, for you have not created me a pagan, or made me a woman, or an ignorant man." Now, lest you're not sure what he's trying to say, he adds, "Better to burn the words of a Torah than entrust them to a woman." I know, Rodney Stark quote. That was actually from a guy I'm going to quote in just a moment. Isn't that amazing? So by every politically correct positioning, Jesus should have ignored her, turned his back on her, not engaged her, and certainly not walked her through the beauty, wonder, and power of redemption, healing, and goodness. But you know what Jesus does as a systematic unfolding of his life and ministry? Don't you love the fact that he liberated women? I mean, he really did. In order to understand the day, we need more quotes like those 2. It's better to burn the Torah than to teach it to a woman or entrust it to a woman. Woo. Look at Martha and Mary. We know the story. Jesus brings a crowd to Mary and Martha's house. They sit at his feet, Mary does, with a bunch of the other people. Martha is doing what is politically correct. She is hosting the moment. She's feeding everyone, looking after everyone, playing the host. She comes to him exhausted and says, "Jesus, can you believe what my sister's doing? She's sitting at your feet. Everyone knows she shouldn't sit at your feet. You're a rabbi, you only teach men." And secondly, she's doing the politically incorrect thing by ignoring everyone's needs and by sitting with you. What does Jesus say? Martha, Mary's choosing what's right. The Pharisees would have said, no, Jesus, wrong answer. The right answer is, Mary, get your butt off and go and host, because you're a woman, you're meant to be in the kitchen. Take care of everyone. Make sure the atmosphere is good so the men can get on with eternal business. And Jesus said, no, Martha, Mary's chosen the right thing. What about the woman of the issue of blood that Jesus healed, or the woman caught in the very act of adultery that Jesus liberated? He should have got her stoned. She was naked. She was in adultery. But he didn't. But you see, even there in the PC conversation, today people would say, no, just exercise grace, just exercise love, just forgive her. But Jesus adds infuriating words to that story. He says, but go and sin no more. How dare Jesus do that? How dare he tell her to sin no more? Because in the modern PC church world, you don't challenge sin. You don't say, brother, sister, that's sin. That will destroy your soul. That will be incredibly unhelpful for you. But he does the un-PC thing. He says, but go and sin no more. It gets better. He empowers the woman. Acts 2. Quoting Joel, Peter says that the Spirit of God came upon them so that your sons and daughters will prophesy. He's saying, ladies, I need you to prophesy. I need you to teach. I need you to explain the scriptures in my heart to the people. And then my favorite, and forgive me for rushing, and I got this from Susie Silk, Church of the City in New York. She said, isn't it amazing that Jesus meets Mary? Well, let me back up for a moment. The resurrected Jesus. Mary goes to the tomb to put some balm on him, some fragrance, some herbs on him. But the stone is rolled away. She sees the gardener. And the gardener says, no, you're looking in the wrong place. And then Susie makes this point. She says, isn't it beautiful that it was in a garden that Eve lost the plot and gave away freedom to rebellion and beauty to sin? And how amazing is it that now God takes Mary, a woman who had 7 demons, possibly a prostitute, and he redeems the brokenness that Eve brought by bringing wholeness and the announcement, he is risen. Eve brought death, Mary declared life. It's a beautiful, beautiful, sensitive moment of validation. And then the gardener says, Mary, go and tell the boys he is risen. It's just an exquisite piece. Rodney Stark, in his great little book, The Rise of Christianity, said this: amidst contemporary denunciations of Christianity as patriarchal and sexist, it is easily forgotten that the early church was especially attractive to women. In fact, in 370, the Emperor Valentinian issued a written order to Pope Damascus I, requiring that Christian missionaries cease calling on the homes of pagan women, because most recognized that Christianity was unusually appealing, because within the Christian subculture, women enjoyed a far higher status than did the women born in the Greco-Roman world. Here were wealthy women, women of nobility and influence and key in the cities of the Greco-Roman world, but they wanted this Christianity because they were more free, more liberated, more empowered through the Christian message than through the Greco-Roman world. All right, Jesus offends her. I need to move on quickly. But can I say this, dear friends? She wasn't easily put off. Can I speak as a father for just a moment? I think we are way too vulnerable to being offended too quickly. I mean, let's be honest. If you were spoken of as being like a dog, would you say, well, I'm hanging around that guy. I'm with him. Well, would you persist, or would you jump up, throw out your toys, turn off your Instagram and say, well, I'm not following him anymore. I'm going to unfriend him because look how rude he is. There was something persistent and resilient about her, and Jesus was worth the offense. Okay, lastly, I said there were 3 things: how Jesus handled being PC, how Jesus handled this woman, and how Jesus handled this daughter. I have to use a little bit of history nerdishness with this point, so I hope it makes sense to you. You know, during this Greco-Roman world, abortions were very much commonplace. It was accepted as part of it, and yet some historians say that there was an enormous amount of shame. So abortions were not done in public and kind of spoken about. It was accepted, but it still carried shame. In fact, archaeologists in their dig in one of the villas found the sewers had been clogged up. And when they opened up the sewers, they found 100 little babies' bodies clogged up because they were just dispensed with. I'm not beating some right-wing agenda. Quite the opposite. I think the right really offends me for the pretense of Christianity, but are so distant from the truth, the wonder, and the liberating power of the text. Here's some interesting statistics. In 27, let me go to get it right. Let me just jump forward here. In 2017, there were 926,000 abortions in America. In fact, from 1978 to 1997, there were on average over 1 million babies aborted in this country per year. Babies, children killed in the womb. Do you know from 1775 till 1991, all of the wars America have fought, Up until 1991, that's before Afghanistan and Iraq, the total number of military casualties was 651,000. That means in 1 year, we've killed more babies than all of the wars we fought in. What do you think God thinks about that? Do you think God leaps out of his throne of grace in heaven and says, "Yay, go America"? Do you think he says, "Hallelujah, this is the most amazing thing"? Jeremiah says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." Life, when seed enters the womb, life begins. Secondly, infanticide was prolific. In other words, babies left to die after they were born. Exposure, Rodney Stark says, of unwanted female infants and deformed male infants was legal, morally accepted, and widely practiced in all social classes in the Greco-Roman world. In fact, listen to this dear letter from two people, we don't know who they are, during that time, from Hilarion writing to his pregnant wife, Alice. He says, "Know that I'm still in Alexandria. I ask and beg you to take good care of a baby son. As soon as I receive payment, I will send it to you. If you deliver a child before I come home, if it's a boy, keep it. If it is a girl, discard it. You've sent me word. Don't forget me. How can I forget you? I beg you not to worry." Girls were to be tossed, exposed, left out there to die. Thirdly, women were owned. They were a possession. Jose Pagola says that women had no, in a patriarchal society, they were dominated and controlled by men. They were the property of men. They belonged first to their fathers. At marriage, they belonged to their husbands. If they become widows, they belonged to their sons or returned to their fathers and brothers. Autonomy was unthinkable in a woman. They were owned by someone. So not only was there abortion, infanticide, but possession, ownership. And lastly, they were married off. And I need to land. But we know that they were married off really young. History records the noble and the royal class. And so we know from them that Octavia and Agrippina were married at 11 and 12, respectively. Quintilian's wife bore him a son at 13, and Tacitus wed a girl of 13. Why am I telling you all that? I think it gives us a window as to what this mother was fighting for. She fought the pressure to abort the child. She fought the pressure to leave the child exposed, especially when the child was sickly. Where was the father? Why wasn't he fighting on behalf of his daughter? I think it makes the story of the mother's fight that much more profound. She was prepared to be embarrassed, to be resisted, to be dismissed, to be humiliated. In all of that, Jesus extended grace and kindness, that for 2,000 years we've told her story. I'm done. What is our response? I do think, as I was out praying this morning, every one of us needs to say, "Lord, where am I held captive to being politically correct? To be held captive by the nuance, the subtle and sublime and persistent pressure that society imposes on me to conform into their image and likeness." And the joy of this passage is the freedom Jesus gives, that I can live as a kingdom person without this captivity. Secondly, ladies, I ask that God will give you the freedom that's in his son Jesus. The gospel opens the door to true liberty, beauty, wonder, and awe. And young ladies, there is a remarkable story for you. Would you ponder on that? And maybe family with family, friend with friend, take a moment and say, "Jesus, rob me, remove from me the pain of being PC. And let me step into your world of goodness and of grace and of forgiveness and of healing." Enjoy.